Hey guys, welcome to another video on the channel. Today we're going to be having a live commentary showing why Battlefield 5 failed from an artistic point of view. I'm sorry for the bad content and you might hear some wind in the background. I'm having a storm right now, but that's beside the point. So first, y'all know about the whole crazy stuff about the real trailers. Bionic lady, blue hair, race Ooga Booga, she's gender Apache, I don't even know. Y'all know how that is. I'm not gonna go too in depth, but they started out the game as basically Blue Hair Girl 2019 simulator. Next thing, if we hadn't stepped in, we would have had a DLC called where you could be an AC-130. Either way, that's beside the point. I digress. Basically, after that, they started adding in more other things like War in the Pacific, which made it seem somewhat realistic, but it still didn't have the same charm that Battlefield 1 had. A dark and gritty yet beautiful game. Basically, it's just like a girl from 2019. Doesn't know what she want to be. She don't know what if you want to be an AC-130. She don't know if you want to be a boy. She don't know if she want to be a blue-haired peacock. I'm scared of peacocks, but that's another point. That's something for another day. Either way, the game didn't know what it wanted to be. It didn't know if it wanted to be dark and gritty, or if it wanted to be artistic. And that's what we're going to be revolving around today. So, at first, I thought we were just going to be stuck with the really strange, inaccurate World War II shooter. And I believe we would have a game like Inglourious Bastards. Quirky World War II style, but not too bad. Still somewhat relying on World War II, but still slightly different. Of course, we didn't get that. They just squeezed two different themes in one, and it just really didn't work. And that was one big problem with this game. And yes, I am glad that they at least gave us a few months of fun with War in the Pacific, and yes, I am glad for that. But you gotta give us one thing, and keep that thing consistent to its entire life cycle. And that's why the game failed. It didn't have the same spice. It didn't have the same flair that Battlefield 1 had. Even if you hadn't seen all the maps, all the weapons, all the equipment, you still had an underlying vibe that you were playing a shooter based in World War I, the Great War, the war to end all wars. I digress. In other games based in World War II, like Call of Duty World at War, Call of Duty World War II, Hell Let Loose, all these shooter games, you still felt, even though a few of them, or COD World War II specifically, wasn't very realistic, you still knew what you were playing. You still knew you were playing a World War II shooter game, because you still had some of those Saving Private Ryan vibes. In this, some of the maps, in fact, you could take out some of the tanks and the destruction and the dead people, and you could probably put it in a travel brochure, and you'd make some white guy want to take his girlfriend on vacation there for a honeymoon. I'm hinting at War in the Pacific and some of the Mercury maps, or Mercury map. See, the maps were just too beautiful. They were too saturated. They either needed to make it dark. Yeah, they just needed to make it darker, or just have a little more grittiness to them. In this, these maps are beautiful. Yes, they're absolutely stunning, but it's not a war game. It just really isn't a war game, or it doesn't have that vibe. Also, in some instances, in some of the maps, this game, the oversaturation makes it seem more cartoony than Battlefield 1. I actually believe Battlefield 1 has better graphics, and yes, I'm slightly biased because I love that game. It's my favorite game of all time. But this game, Battlefield 5, it's just pick one theme, dice, and stick with it. Or maybe even just bend that theme further. Like with the strange one, like I said, Inglourious Bastards, just go full quirkiness and establish the fact that that's what it is. In this, it never fully established what the aim was. Now here, Battlefield 1 was different. Like I said, we instantly knew what we were playing. World War I shooter. It just still has that same grit and darkness to it, but still not too dark so that it feels depressing. Just that perfect grain, that perfect spice. Plus it just has an amazing vibe. It has character to it. Battlefield 5, it just doesn't have it doesn't have a distinctive vibe. With Battlefield 1, you just have that really strong internal feeling that separates it from other games. In Battlefield 5, the thing that separates it is its lack of that spice, and that's what ruins it. And yes, I do have a considerable amount of hours on Battlefield 5 just playing it, and yes, there are some good gameplay elements, but I'll let some other technical YouTubers explain that stuff. For now, we're just gonna explain the artistic side of things. It doesn't always work. Sometimes even what the fans say, we don't exactly know what we want. We're always gonna complain, and yes, I will always prefer a more realistic take on a video game or on an era of history. But when you have two conflicting themes, it messes it up even worse, because then you don't know exactly what you're playing, and it just seems like a really messed up mix. It's like a meal of two different kinds. Like, say you're at a potluck and one guy brings chili and the other one brings mashed potatoes, and you put them on the same plate, and instead of just having one flavor or the other, they're just mixed up and it's bad. And that's exactly how Battlefield 5 was. And yes, I'm very hungry right now. I haven't eaten in like 5 hours and I'm really tired. It's about 1 AM where I am. But like I've been saying, the game needs to be one thing, and our fans will probably eventually learn to like it. Of course, we don't need blue-haired girl 2020 simulator. We don't need furries and whatever's running around the map. We just give us one thing. Just give us one regular thing, DICE. And that's what I hope for Battlefield 6. Don't worry about the political correctness. How many of those people are even going to play it? And yes, that's very judgy. And I know that's very crude. I'm going into hard territory. But just think. How many of these guys are going to play this game in the fact that we need insane, massive, heavy representation to that extent, where it takes up a massive half of the game to appease them? Just think about it. It's... oh. I'm sorry, I just had an idea and I kind of forgot it. This is kind of unprofessional, but I have 3 subscribers. Maybe 2. Also, as I was saying about political correctness, Battlefield 1 did it in a perfect way, where it still felt immersive, but you could still see it was there, and it didn't really make the game bad for a lot of people, or it didn't ruin immersion like Battlefield 5 did. What I'm getting at is the presence of African Americans in most factions, so that it couldn't be seen as racist, and that it would include all the real people. They made normally one role of each faction, that race, and therefore we can appease everyone, and they can still show that they care, instead of giving us the option to be an AC-130, an Ooga Booga furry, an Ooga Booga Ching Chong, whatchamacallit, I don't know. I'm just free balling now. I guess y'all get the point of what I'm talking about. Battlefield 5 needed to stick with one theme and reinforce that theme. Overall, no matter which way, if they were gonna do that weird design stuff, it would have never measured up to Battlefield 1.